Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth.
I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change.
We do not care whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch mice.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be.
To those waiting with bated breath for that favourite media catchphrase, the U-turn, I have only one thing to say. U-turn if you want to. The ladies not for turning.
It's hard to fail, but it's worse never to have tried to succeed, is a quote from Theodore Roosevelt Jr., often referred to as Teddy Roosevelt, a soldier, conservationist, naturalist, statesman, historian, writer, and the 26th and youngest President of the United States of America. He also won the Nobel Prize for Peace, and is whom we name the teddy bear after. I thought this was a fitting quote for our guest today, someone who knows the satisfaction of not being one of those cold and timid souls where giving up is not an option, whose motivation was to wear the national jersey and coat of arms, who has tasted success and disappointment, and who has been a world champion and captain of his country, and who is now at the helm of an organisation with one of the most trusted brands in Australia. Our guest today is Philip Kearns AM, Chief Executive Officer of AVJennings Limited, a leading residential property development company that has been part of Australia for over 90 years. Phil was recently appointed as Director on the board of the local operating company of the Rugby World Cup, following his earlier appointment as Executive Director, Rugby World Cup 2027 bid, which was successful and now sees Australia tasked with delivering the 2027 and 2029 World Cups. Wallaby number 681, Phil played 67 tests at hooker for Australia, captained the team 10 times, and was a member of 3 World Cup campaigns and 2-time World Cup winner. Since retiring as a player, he has had a successful corporate career, working with Investec's Corporate Advisory and Capital Markets Division, before serving as Chief Executive Officer of Centric Wealth and more recently as Managing Director of Interisk Australia. Phil has also been a Fox News sports commentator for close to 2 decades, been deeply involved in the Humpty Dumpty Foundation, and is the founder of the Balmoral Burn, an annual charity event which has raised more than $30 million for children's medical facilities across the country. He has competed in numerous Sydney to Hobart yacht races and hopes to shortly return to the pool and build on his water polo game. Hello and welcome to another episode of No Limitations, a show where we speak to elite world-class performing men and women and unlock the secrets and influences that have shaped their destinies and you could apply to your own life. For our first-time listeners from all over the world, please don't forget to follow on your preferred podcast platform and share with your friends and colleagues. And for our first-time listeners in France, England, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, Wales, Argentina, and Fiji, a big hello. I am your host, Greg Robinson, Managing Partner of Blenheim Partners Executive Search and Board Advisory Firm. In this engaging and at times very personal conversation, Phil, who is one of the most respected figures in international rugby union and Australian sport, takes us on a journey through both the lens of an elite athlete and a successful corporate CEO, sharing the highs and the lows from the packed stadium to the deal-doing boardroom. We explore what it means to have a crack and why it's okay to fail, what it takes to win, and how is best to lead. We cover the difficult years of Australian rugby and the promising future ahead. We learn about the special 20-cent coin and the 7 precious minutes, about the importance of your values and the need to make the most of every day. So sit back and enjoy the man in the arena. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Great to be here.
Phil, did Sean Fitzpatrick organise the 2 sausages for you for that night's barbie?
Thought it might start off something like that. Sean and I didn't get off to a good start in our relationship. I blame that on him. He wasn't very nice to me in my first test or second test or third test. And not up until that point where I scored the try in my fourth test against the All Blacks. So we had that in 1989 when I played my first test against them. We lost that and he wasn't very nice. What are you doing out here, little boy? You don't deserve to be here. What are you doing, little fat kid? Why don't you go home to mummy? And I just wanted to go home to mummy. It was a very daunting occasion, a great occasion, which I loved every second of, but it was a big day. And that kept on. We toured New Zealand in the next year in 1990 in a 3-test series. We lost the first two and we got to that third one. So my fourth test against them and might have scored that little try and that was my get back.
Okay.
So I maybe said 8 or 10 words and he'd already shared 1,000 with me before that.
Rugby World Cup. What does it actually mean to you? What does it conjure in spirit looking back and going forward as well?
You know, it was only 1991, which we won, was only the second World Cup. 87 was the first one, 91 was the second one. So it was the newly established World Championship, and it did mean something. No one in rugby until 87 had ever been the official world champion before. So to have that is really special for all players around the world. And now it's expanding and 20 teams in this competition, and so that's important. There's actually about 120 countries that it starts off in, and it gets whittled down to the final 20. And so it is a critical piece in the puzzle of world rugby, and the players feel that.
And you've been a member of three World Cups? 3
World Cup teams, 2 of them successful. 95, we had a bit of a shocker. You know, we let hubris and arrogance, in my view, get in the way of success.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. We were good in 91 and we were still successful in 92 and 93 and even 94, which was the Gregan tackle test. We beat New Zealand and we went into 95 thinking we were probably a little bit better than what we were. I think we had a few new players coming to the team who thought they won the 91 World Cup and were sort of living off that glory a little bit. And I think we didn't train as hard, we didn't work as hard, we didn't have the right attitude going into 95, but we regained that.
What's the magic behind the scenes, Phil? Now, like you say, it's 120 countries to start with, down to the final 20. Very few get to that level, and then to play in 3, but also to be a part of the magic behind it. What does it feel like? And what am I looking out for? Which I maybe from the spectator's point of view, I'm trying just to see something.
There's a fairly important ingredient in a successful team. That's good players.
Comes in handy.
So that's a fairly important part of it. And, you know, if I won't even bother with the 91 team where you're starting to mention names like Farr Jones and Campese and Liner and Horan and Little.
Yep.
You know, you go to the 99 team when your back line is Gregan, Larkham, Herbert or Little, Horan, Roff, Tune and Burke in your back line. Like, that's a pretty fair side. And, you know, you're not even talking about your forward pack with Eales and Wilson and, you know, those sort of players in it. You got to have good players. And I guess the second part of that is you have to be united on the journey. You got to all want to put your bodies on the line and your heart and soul into it. And if one person isn't doing that and you don't call them out on it, then you're not going to win.
Who calls them out, Phil?
Most important person's probably the skipper. That's who it hits the hardest with, or the coach. That's the second one. And then third is the teammates around you. You know, there'll be people that you have in a team that you have a special bond with, and if they say something to you where you're out of line or whatever you're not putting in, then that stings as well. If you get all 3 of them, you're probably not going to get picked.
So what happened in 95 then? If you had all the ingredients and sense of basic skills, it wasn't things weren't called out?
No, probably not. They weren't called out as much. You know, I remember guys saying that they were tired and, you know, we needed more rest before the games and that sort of stuff. I thought, I'm actually training less than we did in 91.
Yeah, right.
And I thought there was a bit of laziness creeped in and I don't think it was called out. And, you know, by that time, some of the younger players from 91 had become senior players in 95.
Yeah.
And so they were listened to. They had agency at that point, and maybe they'd got a bit lazy.
What do you say?
I think at times I was probably one of them. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of, I'm not perfection.
Yeah, okay. I always thought you had a reputation of putting things forward.
I do, and it was only after I came back from 95 that, you get in the House of Mirrors and you take a good long hard look at yourself and you think, I stuffed up. And I don't think all players did, because some of them weren't there in 99. Some were, but not many. So I think it was those people that were prepared to get in the House of Mirrors that continued on.
So what are you expecting in this World Cup?
From the Wallabies, or just generally?
All the above.
I think this World Cup's a really exciting one for me, because there are teams there that we haven't seen before. Chile, Portugal, these sort of countries that are coming through that can be an important part of world rugby moving forward. USA aren't here, for example. Chile knocked them out, but USA are hosting the World Cup in 2031, so they need to get their skates on to be an important part of that. Canada aren't there, and then I think this is the first World Cup they've missed out on. So I think, people in Australia often, send the message, oh, rugby's dead. It ain't dead. It's growing globally. We're having a bad trot, there's no doubt about that, but it's not dead. It's, in fact, alive and kicking. You
enjoying the style of the game, or in the different hemispheres? Is it starkly different?
In any code, you can get good games and bad games. In AFL, you get boring games. In rugby league, you get boring games. The press never say anything about it because they're fanatics as well.
Yeah.
Whereas in rugby, if it's a crap game, the journos will tell you it was a crap game.
Yep.
People read it, people hear it on the radio, and they mightn't have even seen the game, and they go, oh, that was a crap game. Go, did you watch it? Oh, no, I didn't watch it. But, so the style in the Northern Hemisphere, they do play a different style. It's more of a kicking style. There's no doubt about it. It's more of a forward game because the fields tend to be wetter up there.
Yep.
Although that's evening out because the technology around fields is improved dramatically.
Yep.
So it is a different style, but you can get an awesome game of rugby between Wales and Scotland, and you can get a crap one in Australia playing New Zealand, or vice versa. You can just get good games and bad games. The Wales-Fiji game in this World Cup was an absolute crackerjack game.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say the Wallabies-Fiji game was a good one.
No. Where would you put Australia at the moment?
Well, I think their world ranking is 9 at the moment, and I think that's probably pretty fair. Having said that, any team between 3 and 10 can beat each other on a particular day.
Yeah.
On the day.
Yeah.
And we've just seen that with that game. Fiji were absolutely the better team on the day, and they prevailed. But it is so close. Our world rankings are also skewed by the fact that we play New Zealand so much.
Yeah, right.
No other team in the world plays New Zealand as much as what we do.
Yep.
England might play them every 3 or 4 years. We play them every year, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, and that forces our rankings down as well.
So you're happy where the grassroots of the game is at?
No, I wouldn't say I'm happy with it. We've got a lot of work to do in that space. I think rugby league and AFL have done a much better job in that space, but money makes a huge difference.
Yep.
The AFL television deal, something like $2.5 billion.
Yes.
Ours is in the tens of millions. It's chalk and cheese. Rugby has something very different that those other codes don't have. They don't have a World Cup.
Yeah.
Or a real one.
Yeah, or real international.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you are the best player in the world in rugby, you are genuinely the best player in the world. If you're the best player in the world in AFL, well, you're only the best player in Australia. So that's one difference. The second difference about rugby is there is a position on the field for every type of person. Fat, skinny, short, fast, slow. The reason I loved the game is I used to play soccer as a 6 and 7 year old, and maybe even 5 year old, 5, 6, 7 year old playing soccer. Now, tell me the last fat kid you saw playing, or fat bloke or woman playing high level soccer.
Doesn't exist.
You don't, or AFL.
Yep.
In rugby, I can have my body shape, and there's a place for me in the game. And my role in the team is as critical, if not more critical, than that really fast, flashy, sexy-looking bloke standing out there on the wing.
Yep.
And that's the great thing about the game. There is something in it for everyone.
Yeah, but am I going to start the game if the team keeps losing at the top? It's really, really important.
It is really important to have success. You know, we've seen it just with the Matildas recently. And actually, I said to a couple of my mates, and I've asked them, I said, name me one player in the Socceroos, one current member of the Socceroos squad.
Struggled?
Absolute struggle street. The best they could get was Harry Kuehl and Mark Viduka.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're rattling off the names of Rasso and you know, Kennedy and Van Egmond and Kerr, and you know, we could rattle all them off.
Yeah.
But we couldn't, and we'd only been at the World Cup in the Socceroos the year before.
Yeah.
So success is critical to the growth of the game. It's about television ratings, it's about sponsorship, and it's about attracting kids and creating heroes. And we've got a long way to go on that. The best way to do that is from the grassroots within. Rugby Australia cannot save the grassroots because that's not their job.
Yeah, but what is the grassroots now? Is it still confined to Queensland, New South Wales, or is it broader than that?
No, I think it's grown. It's grown in Victoria. You know, much a higher population there, of course, of Islanders, and Pacific Islanders are playing it down there.
Yep.
And there are burgeoning competitions down there. Same in Canberra. You know, during COVID period, there's lots of reports about country rugby clubs growing, and there was the primary reason for that is because the kids weren't at the private schools, so they you know, they couldn't be at school because of COVID, so they'd go home and they'd play for their local club, and so there was a boost there. And in fact, in a lot of the country regions around New South Wales and Queensland, rugby's grown. It's that transition piece between school and playing for your local club that is a nexus that's missing for us. And then once you can play for your local club, then who knows where you can go. And it's creating that connection from school through to the Wallabies that we've lost, or from your local club through to the Wallabies. That's why I'm thrilled that Phil Waugh has taken on the role of CEO there.
Yeah, okay.
Phil, I remember when I was a young first grader at Randwick, second and first grader at Randwick, Phil Waugh was the ball boy, running the flag and doing that sort of stuff, bringing water out. And so he's seen the grassroots through Ringer Juniors and through the Rats, and then he went to Sydney Uni by all the players, and then he went through and becomes a Wallaby. So he knows how that connection fits. And, you know, for the clubs, it's so important to see that their Wallaby player is there on Saturday or Sunday. So he might play a Super Rugby game on Saturday, but he's got to be there Sunday. And he might even lace the jersey on or lace the boots up for 10 minutes, but that's a really critical piece of it.
Where'd you grow up?
Southern suburbs of Sydney, Blakehurst.
Oh, you're Blakehurst, eh?
Blakehurst boy.
St George boy, eh?
Yeah. So I played juniors for St George, Blakehurst Blues, and this is a thing that saddens me about rugby. The Blakehurst Blues don't exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
In fact, only two clubs that were around back then exist that I used to play against, and that was Sylvania Bulldogs still exist, and Burraneer still exist. So I played for St George Juniors, and they ended up putting St George and Port Hacking together to become Southern Districts.
Yeah, I know that well. I'm from the Shire myself.
Okay, there you go.
What did Mum and Dad do?
Mum looked after me and my sister, and Dad was a Qantas pilot. So he had quite an interesting background. He started out as a lift mechanic and electrician, and that's what he used to pay his way to become a pilot. So he paid for himself to become a pilot, and he flew mail planes around the mountains of New Guinea.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of blokes are brown bread from doing that, and so he survived that, and then he ended up at Qantas.
What made you move into rugby? So you stayed, as like most young kids, particularly in that region, you started in soccer. What made you go to rugby?
I lived next door to a park where they played rugby. If you know, the park was called The Green, across the road from Coal Bay Bowling Club. And, you know, it was clearly I didn't get the ball a lot in soccer.
They didn't put you in goalkeeper then, eh?
No, they didn't put me in goalkeeper. And so I said to Dad, and there were a few mates at Connells Point Primary, they went and they were playing rugby, and I said, come down and play. And back in those days, there was one move, right? When you got a penalty, there was one move, and that was Kearnsy on the burst, right? So, which is the equivalent of give it to the fat kid running hard, right? And so I'm the fat kid. I'm thinking this is good. I got an opportunity. So we got a penalty. I'll never forget it. And we're, you know, about 8 metres out from the line, and I walk back about 5 metres and get up a bit of pace for me. And they gave me the ball, and I went over and I fought my way to the try line. I had about 3 or 4 little kids hanging off me and scored a try. And I thought, that's it. I'm done. This is my game.
Yeah, right.
There's a spot for me here. I love this. And that was it.
Now, you were adopted?
Yeah, I was adopted. Yep. Mum and Dad couldn't have kids. So there was sort of no big deal about it. My sister was the same, both adopted.
Yeah, okay.
Different birth parents. But as young as I can understand, I reckon I was maybe 5 or 6 when they thought I was old enough to understand that I was adopted.
Oh, they told you then,
And
did they?
Told me right back then.
Yeah, right, that's early.
And it was like, okay. I mean, I know people now that I know they're adopted.
They don't know?
That they don't know they're adopted.
Right. Yeah, right.
And could you imagine how devastating that would be for them at that age now? So it was great. I mean, I had wonderful parents. So it was never an issue.
Was it a driving force?
No, I don't think so. I think...
You don't reckon? I've heard a few people say it might be.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think when it's just a normal part of your life, it's, it was just something that happened. It was, no big deal. And Mum and Dad were always my mum and dad. I've never bothered finding out who my birth parents are. Most of the people I've found, I know that have done that have had long-term and negative experience.
Yeah, okay.
It all seemed great and rosy to start off with, and then birth parent gets a bit clingy, or something goes wrong in that relationship and it turns out to be a complete disaster. So not only do you end up in a stink with your birth parents, you end up with potentially a bad relationship with your adopted parents along the way, and I've just heard so many bad stories. But I guess if there's a health issue that I get, then maybe I'll find out then. But no.
So the curiosity didn't overcome you, eh?
No. I figure either my mother or father might have been, birth mother or father may have been large. That's
good off the 5 metres.
Good off a 5 metre run. Yeah,
fair enough. Now you go to Newington.
Yep.
So Dad's a pilot, Mum's looking after you, and what made you go to Newington?
It was the closest private school to Blakehurst.
Yeah.
There was a lot of kids from the Shire went there. There were a couple of blokes from my local primary school that I was at that went there. So it was sort of a bit logical. It was a fair way away back those days. You'd get your bus to Hurstville Station, then you'd get the train to Redfern.
And you were in your blazer.
You were in the blazer.
You get picked on by all the us public school guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And, thank God just before I started, they got rid of the boaters. So that was a great thing that happened. Then you'd change trains at Redfern and go to Stanmore Station and walk the rest of the way. So you get bashed between Stanmore and the school, and then you get bashed at Redfern, and away you go. No, it wasn't that bad. We're all in a big group. I think one of the great things about it was a great melting pot of all the kids that are going to schools like Meriden and MLC and Trinity and all these. What a great melting pot, and a great way to get to meet chicks and and other blokes, and it was terrific. And I feel sad, I see all these school buses going around at the moment. Just about every private school's got its own
insulated
bus,
yeah.
And they don't get to mix with the kids from the other schools.
Now, for a team bloke, weren't you a pretty good swimmer?
I was a decent swimmer. Again, my body type didn't quite fit the swimming mould. But I loved it. I loved nippers. I love everything to do with the water. As a surfer, I love nippers. I water skied, sailing, fishing, anything to do with the water I loved. And I still swim today. My main exercise that I do these days is swimming, ocean swimming in particular. I just love it, that sensation of being in the water, the calming nature of it for me. I just love it. So I was captain of swimming 1984 in Newington College. But I wasn't much chop. I remember one race, we were racing at Riverview College, and, when you step up on the blocks, you always think you're a chance of winning. And I got beaten this is in the 100 free. I reckon I was 20 metres behind this bloke that won it. He went on to a couple of Olympics and became a member of the Green Machine, Michael Delaney.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So it just wasn't your bad tumble turn then?
No, I just realised maybe this thing ain't for me.
So when did you start thinking, I'm actually half decent here in rugby?
So I played second grade at school at Newington. Mm-hmm. Our coach was a bloke called Herb Barker. His son, Scott, my best mate, and still is. And anyway, Herb didn't pick me in the first 15. He was first 15 coach, so he didn't pick me. And the next year when we left school, I was sitting at home and phone rings and Scott's on the line and he says, Herb wants to speak to you. I said, okay. So, g'day Herb, how you going? He said, I'm coming past, I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. And I'm like, what for?
Yeah, right.
And he said, I'm going to take you to Randwick training with Scott. I said, Herb, I'm not playing rugby. He goes, why aren't you playing rugby? I said, because I'm shit at it. You didn't even pick me. Like, why would I even play? And he said, no, I'll be there in 20 minutes. I said, I'm not going. Anyway, 20 minutes later, there they were. And he took me off to Randwick training, and there were a couple of other mates there as well. After the pre-season, I got picked in first grade Colts. I thought, what's this all about? And one of the bloke who got picked in second grade was an Australian schoolboy hooker. And I'm in first grade. So
and Randwick's the best team in the country by a mile at this stage.
Well, they were then, actually, and they were now. They won the so that was sort of it. And then I got picked in a Sydney Colts team, and I just started to think then maybe I'm actually all right at this. And it sort of went from there. New South Wales under 21s, Australian under 21s, and I remember sitting down with Herb one day on the footsteps of his house in Gannon's Road, Carringbar.
Oh, yeah.
And Herb said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a Wallaby.
How old were you?
I reckon I was 19, maybe 20 at that point.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'd played a bit of under 21s and that sort of stuff. And Herbie said, here's a 20-cent piece. And he said, when you make it, call me. So I kept that 20-cent piece in my wallet until the day I got selected. So that was the story.
That's a pretty impressive story.
Yeah. Gave Herbie a ring.
Hey,
that was in the old days when they had the old Telstra phone box where you put the coin in.
Why do you reckon you weren't picked at school? What could you have developed, or do you remember who was ahead of you?
Yeah, he's a good bloke too. Timmy Smythe was in front of me, and he's a good player. He went on, he played for Eastwood a bit. My body hadn't matured. Kids go through growth spurts, and as I've been joking about, I was the fat kid through it all about 13, 14, 15, and then everyone sort of went past me at that age group. I hadn't hit puberty like they had, and after 17, 18, that's when I started to grow again, fill out.
Had a good game against the British Lions, didn't you, for New South Wales Bees?
Yeah, geez, someone's researched that very, very well.
Well, that's what really got people thinking, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, perhaps.
Because you've had you've been captain of these under 21s for a couple of times, hadn't you?
Yeah. I mean, no one ever tells you this stuff, right? So if there's a particular game that they saw you play, you don't really hear about that. But I played for New South Wales against the British Lions at North Sydney Oval in front of a packed North Sydney Oval. Okay. And Rob Andrew dropped the field goal in that game to win that match, and we nearly beat them. Would have been an amazing victory. And, I played all right in that game. And maybe it was from there, because then the Wallabies lost that series against the British Lions, and the very next game was my first test in 1989.
All Blacks?
Against the All Blacks, yeah.
Now, you were playing reserve grade at the time for Randwick, weren't you?
I was playing reserve grade.
So this is an incredible pick, isn't it?
It was. There was quite a bit of shock in the papers and on radio that this kid, and there was three of us, by the way. Tony Daly was also selected.
Yep.
I'm not sure Dales had even played a New South Wales game at that point. He was playing for Gordon. And Timmy Horan was also selected, and I'm not sure Tim had played a first grade game in Brisbane, because he was younger than us. And so there was three of us picked for that test match. And it was a shock for everyone, especially us who were picked.
Number 681, is that you?
Oh, I hope your research has done a good job. I actually don't know.
Yeah, I think it was.
Right. Because they didn't start counting them until after I was retired.
So you get the Guernsey. You made that phone call?
I did make that phone call.
Any advice you got back when on that conversation?
No, I think I was in shock and Herb was in tears. I think. Yeah, it was a very special moment. And there's a lot of things about that whole week, or in fact 4 days, because all we were allowed then under IRB rules was you were allowed a 3-day preparation.
That's it.
That was it. So you get picked, and sort of the next day you're on a plane and you're heading off to New Zealand. So you get there on the Wednesday and you're playing on the Saturday, and that was IRB regulations.
But that was still the amateur.
That was still the amateur days. Yeah. Well, it wasn't entirely amateur.
It was starting to change, wasn't it then?
No, it wasn't. Didn't change. Well, there was still paper bag money, like Campo was getting that out of Italy and those sort of places. It didn't change. It didn't become professional until 96. But, it wasn't about 91. There started to be a few things, but it was all under the table sort of stuff. But we did get a tour allowance.
Oh, you got a tour allowance?
$32 a day you're allowed by the IRB.
Yep.
Mate, I'm thinking, this is heaven. Like our first tour of New Zealand, 1990, you're 6 weeks away on tour. They give you a free trackie. You get a nice blazer and some stuff and some training gear and some free boots. You get free Forex because that's who our sponsor is. They ship that over to you.
Yep.
And you get $32 a day for 6 weeks. How good's that? I'm a uni student. I'm rich. It was great. And it was always thought of back then, you had to have a job. Rugby was there as something we loved doing, and we'd fight tooth and nail to do what we did. But we always knew that there had to be a career. So most of us went to uni in some shape or form, or we had jobs, and you had to ask your employer if you could go away on tour.
Ever get rattled by the occasion? Because it's interesting how you seem to just take things on in your stride, Phil. That's a big occasion, right? And you're playing against one of the best forward packs in the world. I'm sure gave you, as you said earlier, plenty of advice for your first game.
Yeah, it was a bit weird. I mean, I'd go and watch the rugby, but I wasn't what I'd say a rabid fan. And some of the blokes I was playing against, I'd never heard of.
Yeah, right.
And because it just wasn't, there was no.
But it wasn't a thing I'd just do on the weekends ever, was it?
No. I trained. I worked hard, really hard. I'm not that talented, so I had to work hard.
Yep.
So I envy's probably too strong a word, but I'll use it. I envy the guys that work hard and have great talent, because they end up being the best players. You can never get away with just talent, and you can never just get away with just hard work.
Yeah, you need a bit of both, eh?
Yeah, I'm pretty much at the hard work end of the spectrum, but that's okay.
Yeah, you must have a pretty strong mind, because you play the next 46 tests straight, don't you?
It's something like that.
You're not going to get anybody an even break to have a chance to get in, eh?
No. That was my spot. That's what I loved, and I'd fight tooth and nail to get it. And eventually I got it back too after the injury.
What's it feel like when you get that jumper?
That's a surreal moment, and not just one time. When you get the jersey, every time is a surreal moment, because it puts into, for me, it put into perspective all that hard work. That's how it was represented in that jersey. It was always the last thing I put on before I went on the field to play.
Oh, you got your boots, the socks, mouth guard ready to go, and you got your...
Put everything on.
Jersey goes on last, does it?
Yep, jersey goes on last. I'd have it sitting across my lap, and I'd look at the coat of arms on the jersey, and that was it. And then when there's a knock on the door, and the ref said it's time to go, then I put it on.
Any superstitions or anything else you do in the dressing room beforehand?
No, I was always interested in some other bloke superstitions, but that was the only sort of habitual thing that I did. Ewan McKenzie, he wouldn't clean his boots until there'd been a loss, until we lost a game. So his boots didn't get cleaned a lot because we won a lot back in those days. But he refused to clean his boots until there was a loss, then he cleaned them again and away we'd go. Your
coaches, they come and go. Tough job. Who spotted your talent, or who do you think brought it the best out of you?
I think there were probably three guys that were instrumental in my career. All Randwick guys, as you'd probably expect. I mean, I've talked about Herb Barker before. He obviously saw something to force me to go along to Randwick. our first grade Colts coach was a guy called Alan Gaffney, who's a terrific bloke and still a mentor in some ways. A guy called Jeff Sale, who was a legend in Randwick rugby, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. And then the guy that made the ultimate call was Bob Dwyer. And they all, Alan Gaffney showed a huge amount of faith in me to put me in first grade Colts over this Australian schoolboy player. And Bob Dwyer showed enormous faith in me to get me into Wallaby selection. There was another guy, Dick Laffin, along the way, who's no longer with us, and Dick was my first New South Wales coach, so he's obviously spotted something as well. So they were all instrumental. But the ones I'm closest to, I'm still close to Alan and Bob now.
So in 89, you're playing New South Wales reserves.
Yep.
By 91, you're running out to your World Cup.
Yeah, pretty quick, wasn't it?
That's unbelievable, isn't it? But I guess that's sport, isn't it? It's a short time at the top. Although you had quite an elongated career when you look at the period of time you and the 3 World Cups you're across. You're running out there in 91. I don't know, where does the confidence come from, I guess?
I think confidence comes from hard work, repetition, knowing that you've done more than the bloke that you're competing against. And whilst you never know it, your gut tells you that I've done more than that bloke. I'm going to get on top. And so I think hard work gives you confidence. It's the same thing, line-out throwing, for example. I started out my career as a pretty rubbish line-out thrower. And so Bob Dwyer put a lot of individual work in me on that. But when you'd have a bad game, you'd go back to the goalpost, and I'd start a metre out from the goalpost and hit the same spot 20 times on the goalpost. And when I'd hit it 20 times, I'd step back a metre, and then I'd hit it another 20 times, and then I'd step back a metre until it was as far away as the back of a line out, which is 15 metres.
Yeah.
And when I hit that 20 times, and that builds your confidence along the way through.
Was there any significant turning points, Phil, for the first World Cup, 91? Was it a year before? Was it 6 months before? Was there a light bulb moment when the team would give us something that says, we're going to win this?
No, I think Bob Dwyer's confidence that he had a team that could win the World Cup was really important to us. We played a game against Samoa, which I think was our second game of the tournament, and we only just snuck a win. I think it was something like 9-3 or 6-3 that we won that game in horrendous conditions in Llanelli. And we played bad, and Bob got us in the team room a day or two later and essentially begged us to understand our talent and to realise our talent as a team.
Yeah, right.
And Bob was in tears. He loved a bit of a cry every now and then, Bob. But that's because he's an emotional dude and he believes his heart and soul in something. And I think that was a really important speech that he gave us. And I think maybe at that point we just went, maybe he's right. Mm. And it started to click from there. We beat Ireland in the last minute. We really dominated the All Blacks in the semi-final, and then England next.
What's it feel like to win?
I know a lot of people say this, but it was relief. Relief that the hard work has paid off. Elation. It's sort of a bizarre feeling because you've won it, and it's sort of like, what's next? Yeah. And it's a really interesting moment because back in those days, people were allowed to run on the field.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we're at Twickenham and the whole crowd start running on the field. Imagine them doing it that way. Yeah. Now, today, you just, so that happened, and then we walked up into the open grandstand where the Queen was and collected our trophy and off we went. But it was quite amazing, and it was a terrific team. And I mean team in all senses of the word, that we all got on enormously, all very different personalities, but which teams do and businesses do, but we all clicked.
Any particular highlights in the sense of personalities or moments that you can remember?
Well, there was a very funny moment with David Knox, who was the reserve 5'8" to Michael Liner, and Knoxy used to like a night out, and anyway, he was spotted by Bob Templeton, who was our assistant coach, who was an early riser, Noxie coming home at about 5 o'clock in the morning from said night out. So anyway, at about 5:30, Bob decides that he should ring Noxie and says, Noxie, are you right? Oh, Tempo, what do you mean? Am I right? It's 5:30 in the morning. Noxie, you're right. Noddy's crook. He's not going to play today. We need you. Right. You ready? Oh, no, Tempo. And anyway, so Tempo played this out for the next couple of hours that Noxie was going to be playing in that test. Noddy was fine the whole time. There was nothing wrong with him. He just wanted to play the joke on him. So it was that sort of bit. There was stuff like that going on quite regularly, and so that stuff makes a team click as well. After the World Cup, I do remember very clearly John Major coming to our change room.
Oh yeah, Prime Minister John Major,
yeah. And I opened the door to let him into the change room, and he asked for our captain, Nick Farr-Jones. And so I went and found Nick, and Nick was in the shower. I said, come on, Mr. Major. And I remember them having about a 15-minute conversation. Nick absolutely stark naked, and John Major remaining very focused to keep his eye line quite high. And it was another great moment.
In terms of footy, did you play anywhere near your perfect game during that cup?
I think as a team, that game against New Zealand was as good as you get. We'd built our form along the way through. We did have that misstep in the game against Samoa, but we'd built along the way. You know, we had a really good, a solid, or even better than solid forward pack. But then we had Farr-Jones, Liner, Horan, Little, Roebuck at fullback, and Campese on one wing and Edgerton on the other wing. And that's a pretty good team.
It's pretty special, isn't it?
Good team.
46 games straight. How do you keep motivated? How do you keep physically sharp? How many injuries were you carrying? Because you're not going to let anybody else in, are you?
When you're young, you don't get injuries. It's later on that you get injuries. The motivation was very, very simple. It's as I said before, it sat on my lap before every test match and was the last thing that I put on. It was the jersey was the motivation. What it meant, and also we would use quite a lot, quite rightly, the Australian people as our motivation, and what it meant to supporters of the game, you know, particularly people in the bush. It was so important to them that we won and that we had a great team, and we played a lot for them. But, you know, in that World Cup, we had so many faxes, it was ridiculous. We had 6 fax machines in the hotel in London going for us 24/7, just churning out fax machines, and we had pages and like thousands of pages of them. And they were stuck all over the walls of our team room, and, you know, so you could walk around the team room and just read what people had been sending from all around the place. And it was even then we didn't really understand the impact that we'd had. You know, we'd heard that people were staying up late and watching the games, and you don't really know what that means, but literally everyone was staying up late and watching the games. And, you know, we started to get faxes in from Western Australia and South Australia and, you know, Tasmania, places that weren't traditional, you know, rugby territory, and sort of I think that built on us. And then after we won, and Nick Greiner, the Premier of New South Wales at the time, Nick Farr-Jones had heard that Greiner was going to hold a ticket tape parade, and Farr-Jones like somehow hunted down Nick Greiner's number and said, "You can't do this. Like, no one's going to turn up. Like, forget it. You can't have a ticket tape parade." And Nick Greiner said, "Don't worry, Nick, we'll be right. We're having the ticket tape parade." He goes, you can't do it. And anyway, we had the ticket tape parade, and we actually didn't understand how big that was going to be either. We got in these little kind of Ford Fiestas or Ford whatever they were called, with an open top roof, and we were in Pitt Street, and we had to come down Pitt Street, turn left into whatever that one is on the water, on the quay, and then left into George Street to go up George Street.
Yeah.
And so from Pitt Street, we didn't know there was anyone there. We still thought there was no one, and we're just going to be driving up an empty street and no one's there. So we turned the corner into George Street, and we went, oh my God. And it was that moment where we thought, this is real, and we've actually had an impact, which is what we wanted to do, is to have an impact.
Now, you talk about that emblem, you talk about the jumper, the coat of arms, being the recipient of it. You then become the leader 10 times, aren't you? Captain of the country. Of the country.
Yep.
That's pretty special. What goes through your mind? How do you set the team up? And I guess on this question, Phil, what is leadership then?
It was a super special moment because on that tour, Michael Lynott was captain and he got injured. And so I had to step up. And I remember Bob Dwyer actually, when he told me, I was sort of a bit in shock, I've got to say. And it's probably the most stupid question of all time, but I said it anyway. I said, Bob, what do you want me to do? And he said, I've picked you as captain because of the way you play, the way you train, the way you are with the team. He said, so just do more of that. And I thought, okay, that's pretty easy. So that was how it was set up, just be yourself. So there's the answer to the second part of your question is leadership's a lot about being yourself and being authentic and remembering your roots and not getting too far ahead of yourself.
Do you give the rev up speech before you walk out the change room, or do you walk around, just talk to them one on one and very calmly? Do you pat them all on the back? Do you land them at halftime? What did you do? All the above?
Probably all of the above. There are people that and react differently to different forms of motivation.
Yeah.
For some guys, a quiet word and a shake of the hand is all they need. For some guys, if you give them the rev up, yelling, rousing, Churchillian speech, they go, what the hell is that all about? Like, that's just rubbish.
Mm.
and
I don't need that.
And they don't need it.
Yeah, that's right.
So part of the experience of being in the team for that long is you start to understand some of those personalities, and that's what your job is as a skipper, is to understand what those personalities and how do you get the most out of them. So the answer to your question is quite right, all of the above, because just different people react differently.
You change it all as captain? Did you keep it under control?
I don't think so.
Because even though he said be yourself, could you be yourself?
Yeah, I think so. Another part of your job is to deflect a lot of the rubbish and the distractions from the team.
Yeah.
So, in some cases you do have to remove yourself from some of the activities that might go on. So, you might miss out on a bit because you've got to do a press conference, or you've got such and such from you've got to do something else with some politicians, whatever it might be. So you do have to separate yourself a little bit from the team, but I don't think I changed. No, I think I've been pretty constant. Maybe that's really boring.
No, that's what Bob wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
You do what most great sportsmen do. You do really well, but somewhere along the line you have an injury. 2 seasons you missed?
Yeah, I missed 2 seasons with Achilles injuries. I tore the Achilles 4 times. Unfortunately, I didn't snap it.
That would have been better, would it?
They said it would have been better if I snapped it. I said that to a mate of mine who was in the SAS. He said, I can do that for you. I said, I'm right, mate. So yeah, it was Achilles injuries. And then when I was coming back from that, then I did both my knees. Tore cartilage both my knees in the recovery process. So yeah, that took up just about 2 years.
Pretty lonely being on the sideline and also doing all the training yourself. What goes through your mind there?
Very frustrating because you just want to play. But, I go back to that jersey and that was my motivation. I'd have it at home. I'd sit it on my lap every now and then.
Oh, would you really?
Just to look at that. That was a key motivation point for me. But I wanted that jersey back. It was mine. I wasn't finished with it. And so I had a crack.
You got it back?
I did. I don't think I ever got back to be the player that I was, unfortunately. And I knew that. And unfortunately, in 99, I got another injury which ended my career. I was going to finish anyway.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
We had 10 years at the top, hadn't you, playing for Australia?
Yeah. And so I knew it was time. My body knew it was time. And I didn't want to be one of those old blokes that hangs around too long and ends up being dropped. I was happy to go out on my terms. I would have loved my last game to be that 99 World Cup final, but it wasn't. I knew it was time.
You're in the stands in the 99 World Cup final?
No, I was home.
Yeah.
We had.
So what happened there?
My second son had only been born about 8 weeks before, so I thought might be a good idea to get home and help out. Because our first son was, they're only 16 months apart, those two. So, I thought it might have been a smart idea to get home and look after the family.
If you look back, Phil, anything you would have changed? Anything you would have done differently? Anything you would have prepared differently, or maybe been more assertive or not assertive, or anything else?
Would have had less injuries if I had my choice. But no, I don't think so. You know, a speech, which you well know, is the man in the arena speech. And I first saw that many years ago, probably when I was about 16 or 17, and it resonated with me. And then I didn't see it for a lot of years until, more recently. And I love that speech. And I think there is a lot of satisfaction in not being one of those timid souls, as it says in the
cold timid
souls that doesn't have a crack. I can hand on heart say I had a crack, and that's satisfying.
How much is down to mental?
Oh, huge amount. Resilience is a critical thing, and the word gets used a lot more these days.
Yeah, every second. Yeah, okay. And so what does it mean to you then?
That when you've been bashed in the head, that when you're hurting, when something doesn't go your way, you get back up, you dust yourself off, and you get back in and you have another crack. It's as simple as that. Giving up is not an option. And if you've had a crack and fail, that's all right. You'll learn from those mistakes. That's life. Life is ups and downs and goods and bads, and just different things happen, and life is about the way you respond to those and the way you move forward. And that's how you learn. And, I've been lucky enough to be in lots of different situations, good and bad and up and down, and we get through it.
Did you have the old psych coaches in those days, Phil, or was that's more?
We did.
And you turned up for the session?
Oh, I didn't think I needed them.
Yeah.
And because they were there for one-on-one conversation. And
but look at today, Phil. They've all got them.
They've all got them today. I think you can find your own mentor and your own person that you respect and think, this guy's been through something like this before. Why don't I give him a call or her a call? There are lots of people who have been in difficult situations, and they're not hard to find because everyone has. Everyone's been in a tough situation. It's how that they've responded to it and how they've come out of it that people admire, and that's why they're attracted to those people. So the psycho, I had every bit of motivation I needed, and it was sitting on my lap there with a emblem on it. That's all I needed.
Worst bit of advice you got?
Oh, worst bit of advice.
Yeah.
I don't know why this came to mind. Eat lots of carbos before the game. Eat lots of carbs. That's your energy. Your energy sources, carbos and blah. So I'm sitting there eating bowls of pasta and as much rice as I possibly could and all the rest of it. I'm sitting there at breakfast and there's Timmy Oren eating bacon and eggs and sausages and steak. And I'm, mate, you idiot, you should be eating carbos. Yeah, how wrong I was.
You're listening to No Limitations with special guest Phil Kearns. In our next episode, I sit down with Peggy O'Neill, Chancellor of RMIT University and former president of Richmond Football Club.
We're on the right track. And we have something to work with that we could see the next premiership. And of course, our CEO was quite visionary, and he had predicted the 3 premierships by 2020. We were thinking, finals would be pretty good. And that came to pass.
Be sure to join us on our next episode. And now, back to the show. So you leave the game on the top, as you say.
Sort of, yeah.
Yep. Is it hard to make the move? Is it hard to leave it behind mentally? You hear of so many great sports persons and who slip into some time of a mental challenge, depression in some cases. How did you go?
No, I was fine because I always knew
It's going to come to an end?
that I had to go on. It was going to end and I had to go into a career. I'd been in university, I'd worked jobs along the way, and that was a natural progression of life to go out of rugby into your career. That was just the natural progression that worked.
So was rugby ever full-time then for you?
It was for the last 3 years, but I always had something on the side. There was some little thing going that would keep my interest in something else, which I think is healthy. And it's better for your game. If you just sit there thinking about yourself all day and about your preparation all day, oh my God, how boring is that? And how self-absorbed can you possibly be? So I think to have that something else is really important. And it should be something else that's good for the rest of your life. Sitting there playing a computer game, that ain't good for the rest of your life. But sitting there doing some study or reading some book or talking to someone or listening to your podcast or whatever it might be is healthy and good for what you want to do moving forward.
So what did you set out to do once you finished the game?
I did an arts degree and I majored in economics and economic history, and I wanted to be a stockbroker. So that was 1987 when I left university.
So Gordon Gecko days.
Well, there might have been that little stock market crash in 87 and Black Wednesday or Friday or whatever they want to call it.
That's right,
It was some black thing, one of the days of the week. I'm not sure which one. Anyway, so I ended up not being a stockbroker because there were no jobs around. And I remember going around town one day and I was trying to get my extensive CV, as you do when you're 19 and just left university. You can imagine it's a one-pager, and going around the stockbroking firms. It was in the days when they still had the chalkboards and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yep.
I was walking home from Hurstville Station and there was an AMP office that was there, and I saw positions vacant on the wall. I should have known better.
Yeah, right.
So I walked
At Hurstville?
At Hurstville.
Yeah, right.
So I walked in and I still remember the bloke's name was Reg Saguna, and I got the job on the spot. And I thought this is great, but I should have known that not a lot of people applied to be an insurance agent back then, right?
Yeah.
And it was absolutely the worst job I've ever had and absolutely the best job I've ever had.
What, get your own leads?
Well, here's your phone book. There's your phone. Make 100 calls and book an appointment.
Yep.
And you didn't get a lot of yeses.
No.
And so in terms of resilience, I'm not afraid of making a cold call these days. Let's put it that way. And that sort of stuck with me through that period. And
how'd you go?
Oh, I was shithouse. I was terrible.
What, you couldn't close a deal?
Hopeless. And we ended up moving to the office in Cogra and tried there. Anyway, I can't remember. Maybe I was there for 2 years, maybe. And that was enough for me. I wasn't an insurance agent. But I look back at that now and just say, what a positive. I hated every second of it, but it was such a positive part of my life, experience in my life, to be able to do that. And so I look back at that fondly with a wry smile.
Yeah, but you had to move in, I guess, in the finance world of PE too, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. I ended up after a couple of other things, I ended up at Investec Bank, which I really loved. Had a great time there. I was there for about 7 years and worked across different parts of the business, worked with some terrific people, and I still look upon that very, very fondly. And then eventually I ended up as a great guy, David Shane.
Oh, yeah.
And Dave Shane ended up as chairman of this private equity-owned wealth management business called Centric Wealth. And Dave fought hard for me to get that position because, as you know, in the search world, there's often these formulas that go out there and the candidates get ranked and then weighted. Each ranking is then weighted, and there was 2 other candidates that I was up against, and in every category and every weighting on everything, I was the worst. And Dave said to them, either he gets the job or I'm resigning as chairman.
Is that right?
Yeah. So they valued Dave a lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
and threw me into the fray. And it was.
Why did he place his bet on you?
I think he saw that I had some people skills and that the business there was a good CFO in there, and it needed people skills and leadership. And I've known Dave now for 35 years, and he backed me, to which I'm eternally grateful.
So this is a turnaround situation?
Yeah. When Champ bought it, no, I won't get the numbers exactly right, but they bought 70% for about $90 million. And when I took it over, they valued the whole business, 100% of it, at $14 million.
Wow.
So 3 years later, we sold it for around about 130 mil or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was around about that. And
so how do you do that? That's now, for all the audience out there listening, that's what they want to know. How do you do that, Phil? You know, what are you saying, 14 to 130 in 3 years?
In 3 years.
And get it away?
We had fundamentally good people. There were some that, in any business that you go into, some people are going to buy into your story and some are not. And if they don't, then there's two ways it can go, really, is they self-select or you have to move them on. And in most cases, they self-select. They say, this isn't for me, for whatever reason, whether it's me personally or whether it's being asked to be accountable for stuff or whether it's a change of their commission deal or whatever it is, they move on. Then there's some, which is the minority, that you have to move on yourself. And then there's the other people that you work with to grow their business. Now, I had terrific people to work with, and I picked some new players to come into the team.
Yeah.
And I think in a number of those cases, those people were actually not right for the job. And what I mean by that is not perfect for the job. But they were younger, and they, I think, were grateful to have a crack, and they worked their asses off to be successful. So, you know, what did I do anything great there? Not really, except I picked a good team, and they worked really hard with me, and we had some success. The other thing is the guys at Champ. There was a guy called Ben Siebel in particular, and Dave Shane were great mentors and terrific to work alongside, and I really enjoyed that experience of private equity. You know, you've got to be, I think it was my old man once said to me, you're an apprentice till you die. And I love that saying. And private equity guys have seen more deals than I'll ever see in an entire lifetime.
Yep.
And so to not listen to them and not to learn from them is stupid. So I tried not to be stupid, and I learnt from them and listened to them and had a great outcome. There's
also clarity, isn't there? You know, there's an outcome, and we're all on this together. It's different to a lot of other organisations.
Yeah. I think that there's two things about private equity and the exits, which I would say negative's probably the wrong word, but in private equity, you never get to pick the date because the private equity firm will pick the date that they exit.
Yeah, right.
You don't get to pick it. I would have loved to have gone another year. I think we had more juice in us to keep
really?
going. And you can never pick who's going to buy you. So you'd never know what the next situation you're going to end up in. So they're probably the two negatives, but the rest of it was a great experience.
So what's your operating rhythm, Phil, when you as a CEO? How do you conduct yourself? You know, you're up at the crack of dawn sending emails, or you're rolling it at 8:30 after breakfast, very calm. You're catching up one-on-ones with people. How do you, like you said, you created a team. A few people have decided to move on. We don't know when the exit date's going to be, but we know we're here for a mission. How do you conduct yourself and conduct the orchestra?
I'm just one of the team.
But you are the boss of the team.
Yeah, but they know more than I do. Like I don't know how in that situation. I don't know how to manage someone's funds. They've got the better expertise than I do, and if they want to tell me how that works, which I've learned a lot along the way, then I'm happy to sit and learn from them. Running AVJennings now, don't put a hammer in my hand, mate. It could go horribly wrong, right? I don't know how to build a house or develop a block of land, but I've got great people around me that know how to do it. So I'm just part of the team, and some of the decisions land on my desk, but those decisions aren't, in this case with AVJennings, aren't what sort of timber are we going to use for this roof. That's not my decision. My decisions are other things.
So what is the skill? Is the skill, people, you can work people out really well, or you can make decisions?
I think I can pick people pretty well. And the absolutely critical skill that these people must have is judgment. That's what I think I'm pretty good at, is having decent judgment. So judgment to pick those people, and then the judgment that they've got judgment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to empower people to make decisions and to give them responsibility, and you're not going to give that to someone that doesn't have good judgment. So that's the thing that you don't know that from day one, but you can work that out fairly quickly with people on different. There's lots of decisions that got to be made, and if they're making far more right than they are wrong, then they've got good judgment.
I guess an irony is you end up moving on and doing something like this again in the world of insurance, but as an insurance broker, don't you?
Well, sort of. I was running an insurance broking firm that was sort of private equity owned.
Inter-risk?
Inter-risk by a company called Austbrokers was the major shareholder.
So those telephone book in the old days did some good things for you?
Yeah. I mean, that was a different sort of client. It wasn't mum and dad sort of client. It was a more corporate client business, which is very, very different. And that was an interesting experience.
Same setup, same aim?
No, different aim. And the CEOs changed of the bigger business along the way. And so there's a different strategy and different. So I wouldn't say that was as good an experience in that world of broking. It's a very self-centered world.
Yeah.
It's a dog-eat-dog world. People are out to chew each other's commissions up like you wouldn't believe. And
so how do you go in that sort of atmosphere?
That culturally didn't match my values, I've got to say. And I've got to, there's probably two businesses that I've been part of, and that's one of them, where I made the critical mistake where the culture and the values didn't match my own. I think that's a really important decision for people to be making when they're moving into another job. Can I work in a company that the culture's... Now, you don't always know that it's like that, but now just about every business, you got a probation period you got to go through, and you've got to, in that period, figure out, is this going to be somewhere where I feel comfortably working day in, day out?
Talk us through the new one then. You're now CEO again of an organisation which has a phenomenal history.
Yeah, I love it.
So who is it?
It's AVJennings.
Yep.
We're a 91-year-old business started by Albert Victor Jennings. Our customers are mums and dads and builders along the way. We sell sites to builders as well. There was a Reader's Digest survey a couple of years ago, and it came out as the third most trusted brand in the country.
Oh, Qantas might have been just ahead of you then.
Yeah, not now.
That's right.
It's got terrific people in it. But again, as a 91-year-old business, we need to change and evolve. And that's a big part of the job now, and people will want to come on that journey.
What was the mandate? What were you given? What were you told? Or what were you? Here we are. We're 91 years old, Phil. We're passing it over to you. What are you charged to deliver, Phil?
I guess if I could put it in two words, it's modernise and grow. To me, that's the critical pieces. And when we get the modernisation piece right, and that's across a whole bunch of areas around technology, so when I talk technology, I'm talking IT technology, but also around building technology, around the people that are in the business as well. They need to be modernised, and we're going to grow. And that means grow people as well, as in give them a greater ability to do their job, to educate them, have them feel more confident, and grow them as people.
So you're taking on people outside again? Outside the normal positions, you're bringing them in?
I mean, I was very lucky that there are a whole bunch of people, really good people in there already. As you know, I've hired a couple of newbies along the way who have worked out incredibly well. So I've been very lucky. But again, like I say, some people have left, and that's okay. If they don't feel they can fit in and it's not for them, that's important also. So I think have we got the team right yet? Pretty close. Not quite there yet, but we're pretty close, and we're doing some good things.
So what's success going to be, Phil? How are you going to measure that one? You say growth, that's a big, that can mean anything. What sort of numbers you're talking about, what sort of size you're talking about, what type of market share you're after, Phil?
Yeah, market share is a tough one in our industry because it's such a broad industry. We're a company that's publicly listed, where our market cap's sort of 150 million, something like that at the moment. I try not to look at that too much.
Is that true? You don't look at it too much?
No, I don't. I actually don't. I'd love to be $1 billion company. That's where I'd love to take the business.
Okay.
Who knows if I get there, but I'm going to have a crack. Bob Dwyer, again, said lots of very good, wise things, and one of them I remember very clearly is we were going to go in and play the All Blacks, and it was a series in about 1992 or 93, I think. It was a three-test series, which we won 2-1. And he said, forget about the scoreboard. He said, if you just do your job and you do it well, then at the end of 80 minutes, you'll look up and Australia will be more points than New Zealand. So don't look at the scoreboard. So I remember that, and that's sort of the attitude I'd take into this. I've got to get my job right, and if I get the job right, then the rest of it will just look after itself. So that's picking the right people to be on the team and having them in the right position and training them in the right way and have the right strategy in place. And if we do all that and execute, then the scoreboard will look after itself.
Okay, what are you looking for in terms of skill sets from people? What's your basic competencies you're after?
Well, there's a level of person that or of employee that I don't pick. Like I'm not picking the guys that are the site managers, right? I'm the wrong guy to do that.
Yep.
Except around their attitude. Like if they've got a can-do attitude around things, if they're willing to learn and listen and not think that they know everything, then that's the right sort of person. They've got a level of resilience. They're the sort of people that we want in the business, because things don't always go well, as we know. I call myself Kiss of Death Kearns, because since I started at AVJennings, we've had about 7 months of rain to start things off. The war in Ukraine broke out, which caused all sorts of issues around supply chain.
Yeah.
Then we had COVID, was the back end of COVID, so finding labour and all that sort of stuff was difficult, a combination of those things. Then we've had 12 interest rate rises along the way, and that all sort of happened when I started. So it hasn't been an easy road, but it's been a very rewarding and interesting road, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Fundamentals are all there then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fundamentals are there.
Okay. Any particular advantages you see, or any particular new markets or plays you guys are going to make about giving the game away?
Yeah, we've just entered into a joint venture with a company called Pro9. It's around a prefabricated walling system. So we're not there just yet, but we think we can get to lock up in a house in 3 days. We know that we can
from construction to there's the keys?
No, just to lock up. So,
okay.
So walls up, roof on. So
jeez.
We know we can get all the walls of a house up in 1 day once the slab's laid and they go up.
Yeah, right.
And then we're working on a few things to be able to get to. So we're not there yet. But we think we can get there to 3 days, and then a completed house in 3 months is where we'd like to be. Because all the cupboards have got to go in, the toilets and all that sort of stuff. But when these walls come into place, they've already got the electricals through, the windows are in, the plumbing's through, all that sort of stuff, and it's sort of jigsaw puzzle stuff to a degree. And we've put how many we put up? We've put on 10 of these homes, 3 in Sydney, 2 in Brisbane, 5 in Melbourne. We haven't had an energy rating below 8 stars yet, and in fact the ones in Brisbane we've had 9.4 star ratings.
Okay.
So ticking the box in terms of the environmental benefits, the savings to mums and dads on their power bill,
yep,
and speed of construction, which, in this time we've got a shortage of housing, we think is going to be really critical. And, I'd love to see the name of AVJennings back at the forefront of the industry,
yep,
back where it used to be 70, 80, 90 years ago. So
which markets are you strong at, Phil? Is it the older, the younger generation coming through? Is it particular suburbs or particular states?
We're in all states, not so much in Western Australia anymore. We're just selling out of there. Our markets are interesting. A lot of downsizers, so mums and dads downsizing,
yep,
and in many cases they're actually helping their kids buy a house.
Yeah, okay, right.
And so we've got the younger market as well.
Yep.
And it's quite interesting. We do get a lot of our younger customers saying that they went home and they told their grandma that they're buying an AVJennings house, and grandma goes, "Oh my God, this is an AVJennings house. We've been in for 50 years." And there's a lot of that brand recognition that goes on. So we do get reinforcement from a lot of our elderly AVJennings homeowners from 30, 40, 50 years ago.
What sells the house, Phil? You know, is it how much is marketing? How much is word of mouth? How much is getting the best block in that space? What sells the house?
What sells the house is quality and value. That's what sells it at the end of the day. We spend quite a bit of time and money getting the designs of our house right, but also the finishes of the house right. And a really important piece is the landscaping out the front and attention to detail and quality around that. I've got to say, I went for as I do, go for a drive and have a look through our communities around the place. And I went out to a little one called Arcadia Grove a couple of weeks ago, which is out Campbelltown area.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, how good is this? Like, everyone was at work, unfortunately, because I wanted to see someone that I could speak to and say, tell me about your house. What do you love about it? But everyone was at work, unfortunately. But I just drove through and thought, we've done a really good job there. And I think as a leader, or not even as a leader, anyone in the company that went for a drive out there, and there's a number of our communities around that you could do that in, and go, you know what, I'm proud to work for this joint because we've done a good job.
All right. Based still on that, and that's probably what you've answered anyway, but any other major points of differentiation? It's pretty confusing when you're going to buy a house. Who am I going to go with?
Yeah, and it is. And there's a lot of people out there and they all say the same things. I think the difference is we got 91 years of caring. And I think it is that factor. Our people really care about the attention to detail they put in, the quality of what we do. They actually really care about it. And I've heard people argue, which is a good thing, internally about, design of this or the finish of that and whatever, because they want to get it right for their customer because they're proud of what they do. I think it's important.
So what's changed in the last, from what you've read, Phil, in the last 5-10 years, and what I'm looking to buy in a house?
Well, I think that's the point of the joint venture we've got with Pro9. Nothing's changed.
What do you mean?
Houses. The people still build the house exactly the same way that they built it 40, 50 years ago. Still put the frames up, then the bricks go in, and then we pluck that into there, and nothing's changed. And that's why this is such a revolutionary thing: is to be able to get this technology to have a quality of house, which, because it's actually made in a factory, the quality of the finish will be better.
Yeah, okay.
There's less human error that goes on, so the quality will be better. People will get their home quicker, and I think environmentally, which obviously everyone's concerned about, it's a great outcome there. So not a lot's changed in the building industry in a long period of time.
Your name was bandied around town a number of times for the CEO for the big gig in rugby.
Mm.
What's happened there?
It was,
and you've written letters as well, haven't you not?
It was more than bandied around. Yeah, no, I was very keen to get the Rugby Australia job, which I didn't get. Raylene Castle got that job. And we were in bad shape anyway, and we ended up in worse shape.
Yep.
And there was a group of Australian captains who were very concerned about the state of the game and where it was heading, because it was going further downhill. So we wanted to stand up for the game and the jersey that we love so much, and that's given us so much. And it was a letter that wasn't taken lightly. There are a number of captains that didn't want to sign it. They thought, no, let's just keep everything in-house, but we'd kept everything, our dirty laundry, in-house for a long time, and it hadn't worked.
Yeah, okay.
So it needed change.
But everyone knew it, didn't they?
Yeah, everyone knew it.
But no one's going to come out and say it.
No, particularly
Publicly.
the people that are running it.
Yeah.
There's a great saying, I think it was Jack Welsh, and Dave Shane actually told me this one, was change before you have to. And unfortunately, we had to. And the other part of that quote is accept reality as it is, not as it was or you wish it were. And we had to accept reality as it was. We could wish whatever we wanted to, but that wasn't where we were at. And I think those 10 captains that signed that letter appreciated that.
So go on, chain of events.
Oh, well, it ended up.
Letter goes in.
There was a change, and this is, by the way, after I wasn't CEO and I'd sort of moved on.
Yep.
Hamish McLennan came in as chairman, which I think was a great selection. There was a lot of hard decisions that needed to be made, and if there's anyone that's not scared of making hard decisions, it's Hamish. And so he stepped up to the plate. And, to be fair to him, he put his own reputation on the line to go to an organisation that was broke and put together a plan with Rob Clark. He brought Rob Clark in as CEO for the interim period, and away we went. And they saved the game. It would have gone into administration for sure. They worked it out. They did a great job. And then Andy Marinos came in, and I actually talked to Hamish, about potentially getting that role again. And he said, "I've got a better job for you." I said, "Better be good." and he said, "It's to run our bid to get the 27 World Cup."
Yep.
And I said, that actually sounds quite interesting. I said, "What's it involved?" He said, "Well, you and I are going to lobby all the world rugby people around the world. We'll have to do some travel and get on planes, and we're going to talk to them all. We're going to tell them why Australia is the best place to have this Rugby World Cup in 2027. I said, "Who am I working with?" He said, "Well, I've put together advisory board, which has got Elizabeth Gaines from Fortescue and Olivia Worth from Qantas, and it's got some names that aren't really well known to anyone, like Sir Peter Cosgrove, Sir Rod Eddington, John Coates." I'm missing someone there. Oh, John Howard, that little guy, who was awesome. Love John. And John Eales and Gary Ella. I thought, okay, that's a pretty fair group. I can work with them too. And said, I'm in. And then about 2 weeks later, and there were some great RA people to work with too. Anthony French and Alicia Keogh in particular were great, and a bunch of other people.
I guess this would have been top priority too, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, because it was the pathway.
The game needs to be saved.
Yeah, and this is a pathway to a great injection of cash for Australian rugby, albeit in 2027, but a great pathway to that. British Lions in 2025 on the way through, and a bit of stuff happening in between with the World Cup. And we thought this is going to be great. And then we were going to take off and travel the world, and then COVID hit and we went nowhere. So we did the campaign via Zoom.
That's hard.
Well, yes, it was and it wasn't. Australia...
Well, some of your magic is how you meet people, right?
Yeah.
And how you engage. You've got that style about yourself. Not as easy over a screen, is it? No,
it's not as easy over Zoom. The great thing that we have here in Australia is Australia. That's the great thing that we've got. We've got some of the best stadiums in the world. We've got sports mad public. We've got the experience that we've run Olympic Games and World Cups and cricket and Commonwealth Games, and we know how to put on big sporting events, and the world knows that we know how to put on big sporting events. And Australia sells itself. It really does. And we just had to sort of put it together, and we did that, and we really worked as a great team through the whole thing. It was a really good experience.
Outside of Australia, what's unique about the proposition that you put forward compared to what you understood the others were putting forward?
Oh, we had no idea what the others were putting forward.
Nothing on the Telegraph coming through? No. No spies in the camp?
No, we knew nothing.
Jeez, really?
What was going on? World Rugby held a pretty tight process. We knew absolutely nothing. We knew that the USA were bidding, and, there's a massive financial powerhouse right there. There was talk about Qatar having a crack at that because they already had the soccer. Then there was talk about Russia having a go. Well, they sort of got disqualified along the way.
Yep.
And then there was talk of the UK making another bid. And so we just worked as hard as we could and as smartly as we could with no knowledge of what was really happening outside.
If you were given the role, instead of Hamish, if you were given the role as CEO.
Or chairman.
Or chair, okay. Well, which one would you prefer, CEO or chair?
Probably CEO.
Yeah, all right. So just say today you've been granted the role of CEO. The business of rugby, what do you have to do? Because it's still a long way to go. As you said, you put something up there now, but you still got to build it.
Yeah, I mean, I would put as number one, engaging with the grassroots is critical. You can't solve all their problems, but winning is part of that. it's a really difficult job because the scope of the engagement is very, very broad, from women's rugby, women's sevens, country rugby, juniors rugby, GPS and schools rugby across all the states. And then you've got all the states you've got to deal with their own bodies. Then you've got the sponsors, you've got the TV audience and the TV
Rights.
people, the rights holders.
Yep.
You've got World Rugby, then you've got to deal with Oceania, you've got to deal with government at all levels you're dealing with. It's a really broad job and it's a difficult job. So the people that you have next layer down from CEO, you have to make sure are right, because when you're in talking to World Rugby and you're in Dublin, you need the people to be here on the ground to be making calls. And, we talked about judgment before, and you want to be really confident that they've got good judgment. So those people are critical to your organisation. So by the way, I don't want that job anymore. So Phil's quite free to have it. But if there's one word of advice to Phil that I would say is make sure that those people are absolutely A1. And I don't know enough to know if they are or not, but that's his call that he's got to get right.
The product of rugby?
Yeah, I think, we go back to it again. A great game is a great game. One of the best games that I've seen over the last 12 months is the women's final between New Zealand and England. What a cracking game of football that was, of rugby that was.
Yep.
So I've seen lots of good ones, and so when you see a game like that, you think, what a great product this is. And then you see some of the other ones, and you think, this is dreadful. So I think...
and you've got some strong competition in this country.
We do have strong competition in this country, and I say our critics and our press are very critical. I don't think there are many critics of the actual game in the other ones. But I've watched dreadful AFL games, dire, and same with rugby league, dire games. And so you say, well, why aren't they thinking about changing their rules or whatever? Whereas a lot of effort and a lot of talk goes into us changing our game and our rules. What we have to remain fundamental to our game is that there continues to be the spot for the fat bloke and the tall bloke and the not so fast guy and the really quick guy. We have to maintain that fundamental of our game, because that's what makes it different, makes us different.
Spare time, you're big into charities, and you've chosen one of the hardest hills in the country to run up and down a few times, it sounds like.
Yeah, that was the Balmoral Burn has been a terrific thing to be part of over the last 20 plus years. I think it's 23 years now. Yeah, I started a little run.
Why'd you start it?
My second son, Finn, was in hospital with suspected meningococcal.
Which is what?
Basically, it's a virus that can force you to lose your fingers and, well, it can kill you, essentially. And I was actually at what was going to be an awesome lunch. It was at Paddington Barracks and with Peter Cosgrove and Steve Waugh and a couple of Peter's direct reports. And I thought, we're going to settle in for a good arvo here. And the sergeant comes in and says, you got to get off to hospital. Your son's just been admitted. So I got in a cab and got off to the hospital as quickly as possible. I rang my mother-in-law on the way. She said, you better get here quick because he's not going to make it. And then we ended up, and we had about 5 days in intensive care. They were filling him full of drugs. They were trying to figure out what was wrong with him. And I just thought, well, I was in Julie and I took turns to sleep in this cot, which was definitely, Alan Alda had slept in this in MASH. Like it was pretty average. The care was amazing. The environment wasn't, if I could put it that way. Could have done with a lick of paint on the walls, for example. So I thought, why don't I do that? I'll raise some money, 10 grand, and we'll paint the walls. Anyway, so I tracked down a guy called Peter Hatfield, if you'd be old enough to remember, was a great decathlete and competed in a number of Com Games and Olympics. And Pete said, and I'll help you to put the run together, because he knew a bit about athletics. And he said, but you need to speak to this bloke called Paul Francis at Humpty Dumpty Foundation. I thought, okay. So I rang up this bloke and said, this is what I do. I want to raise 10 grand and have this race up the hill. And so we had our first Balmoral Burn dinner. We had to deal with council. We had to deal with the RTA to allow us to run up the hill.
Really? Yeah, okay.
Because there's a bus route in the middle of there, right?
Yeah, right.
So did all that, and at the dinner on the...
Well, it's the steepest street, isn't it?
It's not very far. It's only 420 metres.
I've run it years ago. It's a killer.
It's a killer. 420 metres. You just don't tell people it's uphill. And they never told me that. And anyway, so we raised, the first year we raised about 70 grand.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, okay, my job's done here. And Paul says, no, we're doing it again next year. Oh, God. So we raised about 120 grand the year after and about 250 the year after that. And then we got to about 4 years down the track. I had an accident with my daughter, Andy. I ran over her in the driveway of our house one morning.
Yeah, so no, I was in the morning, it wasn't night?
No, it was in the morning. It was I'd just come back from a swim at Balmoral, and the shape of the driveway, I couldn't really see that she'd come running out from around the corner where Julie was at the clothesline, and Andy ran out, and I didn't see her. Just went straight over her forwards. I didn't reverse. I did the full hog forwards. And I remember Finn, who was only maybe 4 or 5 years old at that time, my number 2, who'd been in hospital, the one with meningococcal, he says, you just run over her. And sort of, what? And she sort of looked all right. And then Julie's just rung 000. And
she looked all right, did she? You didn't know?
Yeah,
you didn't notice?
There was no blood. There was no anything like that.
Yeah, okay.
And she was just starting to go very, very pale,
shock.
And in 7 minutes, the ambulance was there, and that was an important number. And they just said, grab a head and run. And so I grabbed a head, and the ambulance guy had a body, and we ran to the ambulance, and they injected us straight away with this. This drug they use for haemophiliacs to stop bleeding.
Yep.
She had 7 of those. They cost $5,000 each, or they did at that time. And they just put her in the ambulance, and off they went. I went to get in the car to drive to the hospital, and the police pulled up and said, you're not driving anywhere.
Yeah.
You'll drive like a maniac, we'll take you. And so I got in the police car, and off they went. Julie was in the ambulance with Andy, and off they went. We got into Royal North Shore, and the equipment that was, because Humpty essentially funded used to buy hospital equipment for Royal North Shore Hospital.
Yeah, right.
And that was what Humpty was set up to do. And so there was Andy being treated by equipment that had been bought by Humpty Dumpty Foundation and its supporters. So karma is the word that comes to mind with that one.
Right.
And so it was Humpty equipment that saved her life. And so since then we've had 22, I think it is, or 21 Balmoral burns. We've raised about $35 million from the burn, and now we buy Humpty buys hospital equipment for hospitals all around the country. I think we're up to about 450 hospitals, a whole bunch in the Northern Territory. They're using equipment that is very old in lots of their hospitals, so we put quite a bit of effort into those hospitals. But I think every health centre that has kids in New South Wales, we've given at least a piece of equipment to. And it's life-saving medical equipment that we focus on. So, yeah, that's the involvement in Humpty.
Toughest time of your life that day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How long was she in hospital for?
6 weeks in intensive care.
Intensive?
Yeah. Well, it was actually really at the end of it. And I heard a similar story about this just recently. She wasn't getting better. Sort of no one really knew why. She was struggling with some breathing and struggling with other things. And Julie said, take the intubator out, take the tubes that were down her throat, take them out. And they wouldn't do it. And after about 3 days of Julie harassing the nurses and the doctors, they took them out. And within 2 days, she was on the ward. And, you know, mothers have this sixth sense that cannot be denied. And I heard a similar story to that recently where a mother said, take the tubes out, and the kid got better almost immediately. So, yeah, that was certainly a life-changing moment. I think from then,
What has it changed, Phil?
I want to do everything all the time, every day. Like, don't waste a moment, because you never know what shit's going to happen. And so let's make the most of every day that you possibly can. And so I try to do that. And I think that ties in sort of nicely with having a crack too. So, I think that's probably the main thing that attitudinally has changed my mind. Don't waste a moment.
Rubbed off at home? And the only reason I ask that, you're not the only one who's got a bit of a high performance sporting background in the family.
Yeah, so proud of all my kids. You know, my eldest son Wilson played at Newington, played rugby at Newington, and played subbies rugby for Mossman. Didn't play last year, but I love watching him play as much as I love watching Matilda play. Yeah. You know, Finn's been playing in number 2 in San Diego, playing rugby over there in San Diego. How much fun! Yeah, and Andy, my youngest, has just got back into running, so I'm anything just watching that. And Tilly, we've got a high performer, so she went to the Olympics water polo in Tokyo. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go over and see her compete because of COVID.
Okay,
so she's a pretty good player.
Yeah, how tough is that game?
Oh my God! She said to me one day, I reckon she might have been 15 or 16, and I used to play water polo up until I was about the age of 16, something like that. So I thought I knew her.
See, there's one size, that's one body shape that would have worked out well then.
Yeah, can do that. Well, it's funny. Tilly used to play netball, and she used to do swimming, and she sort of liked netball, but didn't love it. But she liked the team aspect of it, and she loved that there was a ball in it. And she did swimming squad, and she liked it, but she didn't love it. And then she said to Julie one day, "Is there a sport I can play in the pool where they've got a ball and a team?" And Julie goes, "Yeah, water polo." She said, "I want to give it a go." So Julie took her down to Manly Pool, and she had her first crack at water polo then, and that was it. There was only one thing that she wanted to do in her life from that moment on, and that was to represent Australian water polo. And she did it. She's turned out to be pretty good, to say the least. But, you know, she said to me one day when she's about 15 or 16, and I tried to give her some advice about the game, which is pretty unusual because normally I don't say anything to my kids about anything they've done on the field unless they ask me a question.
Oh, really?
Because one of the greatest things that ever happened in my rugby career is that my dad never laced on a boot. So he just went there to watch because he loved me. That was it.
As opposed to the other fathers giving advice to the kids and put them down and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Worst thing you can see.
He never did any of that, and that was fantastic. So I've really tried to learn that lesson.
Did your old man play any sport at all?
Yeah, he loved golf and tennis. Was his two things. That was what he loved. And Mum loved tennis. So I tried to give stupidly Tilly some advice. She said, "What would you know, Dad? You don't even play water polo." So I thought, okay, I'll show you. And I went and joined an old man's team. Which is still going today. They're a great team, the Wizards, the mighty Wizards.
Where are they at?
Wherever the game is. And I haven't played for about a year because I've had crook shoulder. Anyway,
you're making excuses already.
Yeah, I am. But let me tell you, 2 minutes in that pool is as hard as playing 80 minutes of rugby. Like, it is a hard physical game. And I'm the second worst player that the Wizards have ever had. But they tolerated me for a while, and hopefully I'll go back. I've just been getting some treatment to be able to go back and play. It's fun, but I'm sort of glad that I did say that to her because, getting in the pool there. But it's a hard game, and particularly when you've got young people that are like under 40 that you're playing against, and particularly when the opposition team throw a few 18 or 16-year-olds in, and they're flexible and fast and all that sort of stuff. And anyway, yeah, Tilly's become quite a special athlete.
Congratulations. Phil, just looking back at your career as a sports person and also moving into corporate as a CEO, we always hear the discussion around the best of what sport's got to offer. Can it be applied to business? You talked resilience earlier, one of the most overused words I've got to sit back and listen to all day long. Then the flip side of that is high performance, and some of them even wouldn't know what it looks like. Have you ever felt anything near as good in business as you have for sport? Can you change the psychology of that in business? Like, or is it just a dream?
No, there are a lot of things, and
Without the cliches.
yeah, no, the joy that I get in terms of a corporate world and corporate success is seeing other people succeed. I love seeing that. You know, when someone hits a target, or someone gets promoted, or someone hits their 30-year with the company, or to see people succeed and that you may have played a small part in that success. I think that motivates me enormously to be able to do that. But and one of the key differences between a sporting team and a corporate team is goals. It's the easiest thing in the world to motivate a team, a sporting team, to say, we're going to win the World Cup. This is our goal. You can actually see the thing. You can feel the thing. You understand what it means for everyone in the team. So it's very easy for everyone to be on board with that goal. We want to win the World Cup. Pretty simple. I want to win Olympic gold.
It's a finite deadline too, right?
It's a finite deadline.
Yeah, okay.
In the corporate world, whether it be AVJennings or whether it be BHP, I don't know how many employees BHP have got, or Commonwealth Bank.
Yep.
So we're going to hit an EBITDA target of $1 billion, whatever the number is, right? I guarantee you, most of the people there, or a huge number of them, couldn't give a stuff.
Yeah, yep.
So
how do
but
you?
That's okay. But that's okay. They're as relevant to the organisation as anyone else is, and you know their personal goal then becomes more important. So their personal goal might be, I want to put 3 meals on the table for my family. I want to be able to afford my mortgage and go on a holiday every second year. And if that's their goal, fantastic. I've got to try and enable that goal. But they couldn't give a stuff about the EBITDA or what the ROE is going to be or anything about that. That doesn't float their boat.
Yep.
So I guess to be able to provide an environment where they enjoy coming to work, they enjoy a bit of growth, perhaps in personal growth in what they're doing, and they can put 3 meals on the table, and they can afford their mortgage, and they can go on a holiday every second year. There's something to be said for that. So there are similarities, but there's some big differences in the goals as well. The similarity really is picking the right team at the senior exec level and building, like the grassroots, building some people in the business that surpass you, succeed you, and other people at senior levels, and building that team and the culture where people want to be part of it. It's the critical piece.
So the philosophy, keep it simple?
Definitely keep it simple. I'm not a complex person.
And am I going to see little signs up on the wall and all that kind of stuff, or am I not? Are you into that?
I've put the man in the arena on the wall because that's really important.
That's where it counts.
Yeah, and that is really important, that people along the way know that it's okay to fail, but it's only okay to fail if you've had a crack. It's not okay to fail if you haven't had a go. That's the critical piece.
How are you going on loyalty now? I'm just interested because there's an enormous amount of movement happening at the executive level since we've come out of COVID. Has it changed much in what you're seeing out there in your landscape? Do you have to work harder as a CEO or anything in that regard?
I think, again, you've got to, for a company like ours that's been around so long, and I would say underperformed to where it could have gone,
yep.
I think it's really important to build confidence in the organisation, and you can only build confidence in the organisation if the people in the organisation are confident. So we've done a fair bit of work around that, and
that's external, internal?
Both.
Is that okay?
Yeah. And I think that's been quite successful, and hopefully that builds some trust, and trust then leads to empowerment. Empowerment leads to accountability, and I'm starting to use some cliched words there, but it's really important. If you say you're going to do something, just do it.
Yeah. Don't look for excuses.
No, it's sort of not that hard. And again, but if you're accountable for something and you fail, make sure you've had a go. Don't fail timidly. Fail greatly.
Okay. You get success. What's next? How far ahead do you look?
I guess
as a chief exec, you've got to be looking a few years ahead. So how far ahead are you looking?
Yeah, definitely 3 to 5 years, looking out that far.
All right. That's as the CEO.
That's.
Or is that just as Phil?
No, that's not necessarily. That's for the company.
Okay.
You've got to be looking at like what are the trends, what are the people that are underneath you, and where do you think they're going to end up in the organisation? And so looking, I don't like using the word looking down, but also looking out. What's next? And that's sort of your job, is around strategy and setting that, and who's going to take over. Do I think I'll be at AVJennings in 10 years? Absolutely not a hope in hell. I hope I'm
replace yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Hopefully I'm on a golf course or something. Then I got my handicap and single
Come on, Phil. What else do you want to do?
Come on. No. I actually don't know. I'm really happy what I'm doing now. I know that I've got a finite timeline there, but I want to set up a person that takes over from me with a great opportunity to take it even further. So if we do happen to make $1 billion market cap, let's say we do make it, well, I've got to leave with it set up for the next person to take it to 5 billion or 3 billion or whatever that number is. And that number mightn't even be important to that person that takes over.
Yeah, right.
But you've got to leave it in great shape for them to pick it up and run with it.
You're going to put your hand back up for rugby again in some form or another?
No, I'm on the local organising committee for the 2027 World Cup.
Yep.
That appointment was just made a little while ago, a month or two ago. So, I'm looking forward to being part of that. And who knows what goes after that. I hope at some point in the not too distant future, my kids have kids. And that will be a big part of the plan into the future. But I don't want to be 80 and still in a corporate job.
Fair enough. Phil, if you were to look back at that young gentleman packing his bags, jumping into that train off his way to Newington, what advice would you give him now?
Oh, I mean, I think I've been really lucky in my life to be given advice when I needed it at the right time. So it depended if that young kid getting on the train at Hurstville Station needed a piece of advice to them. I think I've said a number of times through here in terms of having a crack. I think that's really important. And I think it's really important to embrace every minute of every day as much as you possibly can and embrace life. So I think maybe they're the bits of advice that I'd give. It's no point giving someone advice if they don't need it at that particular point in time. Just straight over the head, that'll go. So I think they're probably the main things. Life's good.
On that, Phil, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Greg. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to No Limitations.